Welcome everybody to They Cast from the Coast. My name is Adam Miles and I'm joined today by Tim Johnson and Aaron Peerless, and we have a very special guest with us today. Filmmaker, writer, director, all around amazing person, Steven Kostanski. Everybody!
Yay!
Steven, thank you very much for joining us here. This is quite the pleasure to actually be able to talk to you. I mean, I think, commented once or twice on different things on Facebook, but absolutely to get you on camera here chatting with us is an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for having me. It's an honor to be on the show.
Oh, here you, it's an honor to be on Daycast from the here. We're hitting the big time, guys.
I know.
Perfect. So, Steven Kostanski, Canadian royalty, in my opinion. Here, I'm going to put you on a pedestal here for a minute because I've been following you since the early days of Astron 6 and everything you've been doing with the rest of the guys. But I really want to know, when did it start for you? When did the bug for making films really kind of bite you and you kicked off and went with it?
Well, I guess it started around when I was like 12, 13, and my dad loaned me his Super 8 camera to try doing stop motion animation. I was like, as a kid, I was a big fan of like Wallace and Gromit and Ray Harryhausen movies. Like I love like Jason and the Argonauts and stuff. So he's like, here, you could try stop this camera, and it was not like how digital cameras are now, where it's super easy to do stop motion by comparison. It was like you couldn't preview what you were doing. Like it was shot on film. Like you had to order like a 5-minute reel of Super 8 film. And so I'd spend entire summers trying to stop motion animate these little movies. But as a kid, I didn't know how cameras worked, so I didn't like set the exposure properly ever. So we'd ship off the reel to get developed, and it would come back, and we'd have to set up a projector and watch it, and it would all just come out totally unwatchable. And so I just endlessly made these like dud movies that just didn't turn out. But I enjoyed the process so much that I didn't stop. And eventually one of them sort of turned out, and I was like, okay, like finally after like years of this, like it's and I think the other big turning point was my parents bought a second VCR back in like I guess 98 maybe.
Yeah.
And they actually put the old one in the basement and were like, here, now you have a VCR to watch movies on. Because before, movie watching was like a communal family thing. And so once I had the option to watch all the like dubbed movies that my dad taped for me, like repeatedly over and over again, that flipped in my brain. And I realized like, oh my God, I could just like endlessly analyze movies and break them down. And so I had a shitty dubbed copy of Mortal Kombat Annihilation. I think it was like the copy was so bad it was like, was it EP and SP? There was like the one that tape was over 2 hours, and then one was like 6 hours, whatever. So it was on the longer one, so the I guess faster speed, that shitty quality. So it was like super bad. But just the idea that I could watch scenes over and over again and like break down how the special effects were done, because that movie, as like hilariously awful as it is, it's like a great thing for up and coming filmmakers to watch, just to see the basics of like compositing and miniatures, and like the effects are so haphazard throughout the movie that it's like easy to break them down and understand how they did them. So as a kid watching it, it was like film school, watching all these shitty movies and like just analyzing like how they were done. Like another one I did that with was an old beta copy of Robot Jocks. Another one that my dad.
Yes, Full Moon Entertainment, buddy.
Yeah.
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 So that movie is all about like stop motion and miniatures and pyrotechnics, and so as a kid, like it just totally fascinated me being able to like rewatch these things and analyze them, like the like mysticism of watching a movie and like kind of removing that and just seeing it for what it is, as opposed to being like, oh, we're going to the theater to watch a movie. I'm watching a movie with my parents. That felt like such a disconnected, like the idea of like Hollywood and filmmaking felt like this fantasy, but suddenly I had access to analyze these things, and I started to realize like, oh, this is a thing that I could do if I wanted to do it. And then I think the real like the ultimate turning point was when my parents bought me Army of Darkness on VHS, and it was that Anchor Bay release that had the it had like bonus features on the end.
Yeah.
Like remember like at the VHS era, they would do bonus features, so you just watch past it and you get a making of, like the Full Moon Video Zones. And so they had that making of for Army of Darkness, and I remember seeing K&B Effects in their shop and seeing those guys, like, it's just a bunch of, like, bearded dudes in metal shirts, like, just totally blew their way, and I was like, oh, okay, like, it looks like making movies is actually just, like, hanging out with your buddies and making monsters and just having the best time. And after that, it just, like, I could not stop after that. I was like, I have to make creatures and put those creatures in movies, and this is just going to be my life now. And any hope my parents may have had of me becoming a doctor or teacher or lawyer immediately went out the window, much to their chagrin, and I committed fully to the, like, prosthetics and filmmaker lifestyle. I haven't looked back.
No.
Okay, maybe that time because I mean, lawyer money would be nice, but I love money.
Lawyer money would be nice. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Steve,
Still
did you find that you were more interested in special effects makeup first, like lab stuff, or did you find that you were interested in the directing part of it?
Well, I think I was interested in making things. Like I was always just making shit garbage as a kid. Like I remember, like 11 or 12, like trying to build robots out of like pen caps and like bits of circuit boards that my dad would bring home from. He worked at Manitoba Hydro, so he would get all kinds of like junk, just like old computer parts and stuff. So I would like hot glue things together, and it's basically that part in Simpsons where they're like, see, Homer, that's why your robot didn't work. Like, I was making shit like, yeah, this is how robots work. And then I was really just making glorified, like, childhood art pieces that kind of looked like cool Terminators. And so I think, when the VCR, like, came into play where I was able to just watch stuff on my own, and the, like, mysticism of filmmaking, that veil got lifted, that's when I realized, like, the connection, like, I can make things and then bring them to life on screen. It's not just me like making a thing and then I put it on a shelf in my room. It's like I make a thing, I put it on screen, and it can potentially like freak people out even. Like I remember I made a motion short in high school that was like a very loose adaptation of I Am Legend, back before I Am Legend was even really a thing that many people seem to know. I bought the book and I totally loved it when I was like 14, and just to me is like the ultimate story of this guy versus like a planet full of vampires. And so I made a stop motion animated version of that, and in it I put a really clunky and cheap jump scare, and the short played at an assembly at my high school in front of everyone. And when that jump scare hit, like everyone in the theater screamed and jumped, and I was like,
yes. You were hooked.
Yeah.
You were hooked.
That's the god power that I want to wield. I want to be able to like people jump up out of their seats. And it was such a satisfying scare because it was one of those ones where people jumped and then started like laughing and talking to each other of like, oh my god, I can't believe that happened, which to me is like the best kind of reaction. Uh, so yeah, that was a big moment for me, realizing like, oh, I can build these things, but then through the magic of movies, I can bring them to life and then get them in front of people's eyes. And
That's funny,
tell
man, because I kind of that kind of happened to me when I was in grade 12. I was doing like a Macbeth play or something like that, and they didn't realize what my interest was, and I ended up cutting fake cutting the throats of the two guards guarding Macbeth, and then going in and stabbing Macbeth actually in front of a couple classes, and I had blood squirting everywhere. You would never be able to do that today, but I had blood squirting everything. My teacher thought I killed people, but the reaction that I got, that's what I thought. I was like, I gotta do this for a living, right? So
Yeah.
I feel what you're saying, man, big time. Yeah, that's awesome.
when you get that first reaction,
Yeah.
it's a rock star feeling. And for somebody like me, that's like, I don't play an instrument. I'm not like, I'm not like on the stage. Like I would never like act or do stand up or anything. Like, so for somebody that's more of an introvert who likes to be behind the scenes, to be able to get the crowd reaction without having to like be in a band or on stage performing in a play or something was just like such a confidence booster, because it's like, oh, I can get those reactions too the way that I know how to do it, instead of like, yeah, having to fit into like kind of the more traditional ideas of like what a performer is. It was like being a performer without having to go on stage.
Yeah, man. That's exactly the same way that I feel about that stuff too. One other question I had for you while we're on the SPFX topic. Do you find that you pay a lot more attention to continuity throughout your films and things like that because you have that aspect of SPFX in your back pocket?
No, I am.
No?
I I
It's
am
just you,
the
Aaron. It's just you,
loosest.
bud.
Yeah.
Like I I get into these arguments with script supervisors on set all the time.
Yep.
Where they're obsessing, like, oh, that drop of blood on so and so's face is like an inch off, and I'm like, you think that matters? Like, telling a good story matters.
Yeah.
The stuff like in the Void, obviously in Manborg, Leprechaun, PG, like all these like just glaring inconsistencies that like
Right.
if you watch the movie like 10 times, yeah, you'll find it, but
Yeah.
a normal person is not going to pick up on those things. So yeah,
Yeah.
continuity is not a thing I'm super anal about. I feel like there's tiers to it. There's very obvious things like, yeah,
Yeah.
somebody's shirt color can't change between shots,
Right.
but like I'll do stuff like if it if there's like some roadblock in a scene, like a chair is needs to be moved a foot to the left, like I'm good to do that if it helps the overall scene work, and the
Yeah.
same goes for effects. So yeah, because I find, especially when you get into like really chaotic effects too, like once you start having blood going everywhere, like, there's no way to keep track of that, and there's no
Yeah.
way to
Right.
properly do that.
Yeah.
So you just gotta put your hands up and be like, well, this is, not not to use a Trumpian term that became popular the past few days, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
No, that's
That's
good.
interesting because man, for me, I don't know what it is. It just automatically zings into my head, and I'm like, no, that glass has got to be filled a little bit more, and but it's not something that I studied. It's just something that when I'm on set, I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I've even sit next to the director or whatever, Books of Blood. It's like, I think that wine glass needs to be filled a little bit more, right? And sure enough, right? So he gets on it and he's looking at me. He's like, "Yeah, good catch, right?" Like, so I don't know why. I don't know why I do that, but it's
I feel like, and that's the thing that drives me nuts on set, because now when the show comes out, find one of those inconsistencies, watch it with a group of people who have no concept of the show, and let me know if they flag that continuity error with
right.
you while they're watching, because
All
they
right.
will
Yeah,
not.
yeah. You're
That's
right. You're
it's like,
probably right.
and this is not me railing on be detail oriented and being consistent, but yeah, I think sometimes you just gotta let it go. It's not there. you got to pick your battles on set. And if there is time and money to do it, yes, make everything seamless and perfect and consistent, and let's all obsess over it. But when you're in the low budget world, where it's like your choices are making sure that wine glass is properly full or getting the scene, I'm gonna get the scene.
Get the
And
scene, yeah,
with the wine glass.
Okay, cool.
So yeah.
That's good to
I
know,
have a
man.
question.
I appreciate that. I appreciate it.
Go.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Tim.
Okay, so you've gone from being like this creative kid building monsters and shooting on Super 8s. How did you transition into making this a career? That's
So-
the best. I don't know.
In movies and stuff, it's like that's always the question. Is like, oh, how did you actually like go into earning a living at this? And the broad answer is like, just don't stop. Just keep at it and keep working and improving. And like, I'm not saying that stuff's just going to magically work out, but like, if I found that by segueing into effects and treating that as like, this is a job in film that I want to do, not necessarily committing full time to like, I want to be a director and direct Hollywood movies. I think that's the mistake, is people aim for the thing that is not really reasonable to go for. Like, I mean, sure, maybe there is if you go to like a prestigious film school or something, or your like dad is Spielberg, maybe. But I think the most practical way to like get working in film, and the thing that I did was I just committed to doing prosthetics. I was like, okay, like doing Hollywood movies is maybe unattainable, but there is a bit of an industry in Winnipeg for me to do prosthetics. So I reached out to the one prosthetics guy in town, Doug Morrow, who does like all the makeup and creature effects in the city, and I was like, hey, can I like show you my portfolio? And he kind of mentored me a bit. He got me into the Dick Smith makeup course, which is like a correspondence course that Dick Smith put out in the 80s. And I is still going as far as I know, where he basically mails you a how-to book and it's up to you to just like make masks and stuff. And when he was still alive, you could like mail him your pictures and then he'd like call you, shit all over your work. So I did that. But like in like the sweetest way possible. Like he was never blowing smoke. Like the few times that I talked to him, he would always be very blunt and be like, "Oh, this is like pretty rough. Like this could be better. Here's how you can make this better." And so I started doing that course and kind of mentoring under Doug at the same time and working in his basement shop, which then led to me doing some low budget things. And like while that was happening, I was also making my own stop motion movies, my own shorts. I had met Adam Brooks at that point from Astron 6. We started working together. I started helping him on his shorts, and like gradually, I met the other guys in the team, like Matt and Connor and Jeremy, and so then I had two streams going at the same time. I always had my filmmaking, my indie filmmaking stream, and my prosthetics industry stream going simultaneous. And so, when one wasn't particularly busy, I'd be focusing on the other one and going back to that. So, like, post high school, I would work on set, doing makeups and stuff with Doug, and then I would go shoot short films with Astron 6 and do makeups on those. So I was like always doing something and always practicing and always being productive and not like waiting around for something to happen. And so I found they complemented each other nicely because by the time I moved to Toronto, I had a bit of a professional resume working in prosthetics. So people in Toronto were aware of me. Like Doug had put in a good word. I'd worked on like Wrong Turn 4 at that point, and a few other movies, Capote, some other like shitty straight-to-video horror movies. Stuff that like I could talk to other prosthetics artists in Toronto about and like name drop, and they'd be like, oh, okay, so you've worked on a few real things. You're not like fresh out of school. And so I felt that helped get me into shops in Toronto, while at the same time like finishing up Manborg and Father's Day, and like Biocop and everything kind of in that era of Astron 6. While I wasn't making money really from that stuff, that was like getting my name out there as a filmmaker, simultaneous to me working in prosthetics. So when I moved here 2010, I started working like almost immediately in prosthetic shops and have been bouncing from one shop to the next and been consistently working while also making my own movies on the side. And it's like just a lot of juggling those two things to keep them going at the same time, because the like indie filmmaking part doesn't pay the bills, but the prosthetics thing does.
Yeah.
And but the prosthetics complements the indie filmmaking because it like enhances my skills and a lot of times gives me resources and things to make my effects in my movies better, and my movies help give me some credibility and a bit of a perspective on prosthetics that I think a lot of shop people don't necessarily get, because I've actually like had to shoot these things myself and seen all the pitfalls that come with certain kinds of effects and trying to shoot them.
Yeah.
So yeah, the key advice that I could give right now for anybody who wants to like break into the film industry is like pick that stream, that job, and commit to it, and don't go in with an attitude of like, I want to be in charge. Like treat it like a job, whether you want to do like sound or editing or prosthetics or whatever. It's like you pick that thing and you pursue that and expect to do that like just as a job. And if you want to make movies, make them on your own, but don't expect to make a ton of money off of it. Like the resources are there now to do it. Like pretty much anybody can go make a movie now. Like there's not really much of an excuse. You don't have to shoot on film. Like the cameras are at such a point that like I feel like high schools have like cameras that can shoot feature films now, like that could be, sold internationally. So that's my advice on getting into the industry and kind of how I got into it.
That's good advice. That's good advice.
Extremely good advice, and it really, really, I'm just going to say it, Manborg makes entirely too much sense right now after hearing all of these stories. How Manborg came together, and the interviews that I've read with you before as to the amount of actual time that it took for you guys to green screen everything and do all the effects and film it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that was happening at the same time as me. Like we filmed it when I was still in Winnipeg, and then the following 2 years of post-production on that movie was me transitioning into Toronto and working in the industry here. So I was super busy. Like the movie probably would have been done a year earlier if I wasn't like getting thrown into like Resident Evil 5 and Silent Hill 2 and all these like random things back in 2011. Like it was just a really hectic time, so it had to go on the back burner. So I'd be working in the shop, and then I'd do my like 12-hour day, and then I'd come home, and then I'd be working till like 2 in the morning compositing shots for Manborg just to try and get it done. So yeah, it was a real like kind of do it when I have time to do it sort of thing. It was not a traditional production by any means. It was just kind of done as I was able to make it happen.
Yeah, no, it absolutely worth the wait though. Worth the wait. I went to a screening of it. Jason Eisner held in Halifax, and yeah,
that was. I think he sent me photos from it. I'm sad that I couldn't go to that one, but it sounded like fun.
Yeah, it was definitely a bunch of fun. Definitely a bunch of fun. So okay, that being said, I have one major question for you. With everything that you have going on, what's probably the most fun or the best time that you've ever had producing something, like making something like this? Like whether it's a specific movie or short that you did, like if you could say this is my happy place making this, what would it be?
My happy place. I don't know. I've had so many like isolated moments on everything that I've made that like there's just such a variety of happy moments. One that I always go back to is when we were filming Cool Guys with Astron 6, our like beach comedy short.
Yeah.
There was one day where we were out at the beach shooting at this like snack shack. It was just like this nice, beautiful summer day at the beach and just all of us hanging out and having fun. And that to me was such a like vacation of a day shooting a movie that like I'm out in the world. I'm not like holed up like a mole man in front of my computer working. I'm like actually out in the world interacting with other human beings and like laughing and having fun, but also making a movie and being productive. So that's like the ultimate combination to me. It's like I can't just relax. I making movies at the same time. But that was the perfect synergy of the two. It's like I'm hanging with my friends, making our goofy short film, and we're out at the beach. It's like doesn't really get any better than that. As far as like other examples, like when it comes to like effect stuff, I don't know, I had like lots of fun moments on PG making creature stuff. I find like with effects, it's always so hectic that it's like hard to call it fun necessarily. But it was definitely like a great team on PG and a lot of like really fun people to be around who helped out. So like a lot of like the creatures and stuff we made, I have a lot of fun memories right now of making those. I mean, Resident Evil 5 was a lot of fun. That was like back in 2011. I met a bunch of my like effects friends that I'm still friends with to this day on that show. And it was just such a crazy, hectic thing. And at the time, for me, it was like a big deal. I know you can say what you want about that franchise as a movie franchise, but just as like a brand name, the Resident Evil name to me are valuable and means a lot. So like at that point, I'd felt like, oh, I'd made it. Like it doesn't get any better than this. And so we just had a lot of fun in the shop, just making zombies and those. I think we made like a liquor stand-in for the liquor sequence, so that was fun to sculpt. The It Chapter 1 was fun to work on too. Like that was a great shop experience. It was very surprisingly low key for such a huge movie. I got called in. This was right after we finished The Void, and so I was like scrounging for work, and my friend Tony called me and was like, "Hey, do you want to do some life casts for it? Like just a bunch of zombies." And so I was like, "Oh, okay, sure." So I came in, I helped for like a couple days on these life casts, and I thought like that would be it. But then you cut to 3 months later, and I was still there making stuff. Like I ended up, I don't remember all the characters' names. I'm not the biggest it head out there. But the kid whose like arm gets broken, I had to build that whole rig for him. I think it's Bill. I think he like falls through the floor and his arm gets busted. So it was like this whole fake arm where he had to like have his real arm strapped.
What's his name? The smart ass kid.
Richie?
Not Richie. No, the one that was always talking fast.
We're failing. We're failing. I'm failing as a horror fan.
I'm the hugest fan, and I'm like stunned right now. His mom, overprotective.
Yes. Placebos.
Yeah. Hit you in 20 minutes from now.
Yeah, and
20 minutes.
He won't be on at all. I'll be sitting alone on my couch, and I'll be like, "That's his name." Yeah.
He'll be messaging me. Damn it, Adam.
Yeah. Drop the name in after the fact. But yeah, that was a really fun show to work on, and it was just like because it was a small team. I think that's what I like because of my like indie background. I don't like giant productions with like hundreds of people. Like I really like a tight team where if you have a question like about something, that person you have to ask is sitting like 2 tables away from you instead of having to be like, oh, we got to schedule a like conference call to discuss this minute thing that you have an issue with. Like it was nice having I think it was like maybe 6 of us working on it in this massive shop. So it just felt really relaxed by comparison to something like, say, like Pacific Rim, where it just felt like a shop full of people, and you just felt like a cog in a machine and not much else. Not to say that show didn't have its fun moments, but yeah, I guess I just prefer the smaller teams, and it was a good team of people. So yeah, those are some of my good experiences. There isn't like one that stands out as like the absolute best, but there's some good memories buried in there, amongst a lot of very stressful memories.
Oh, that makes entirely too much sense.
And to clear it up, his name was Eddie.
Eddie.
Oh, so I was way off. Okay.
I cheated. I had to IMDb it because it was here, and I was like, yeah, it's going to bug me if I don't say it or whatever.
Yeah. Stop saying Bill.
Hello, everybody. I am Fabio Frizzi, and you are listening to Daycast from the Coast.
Now, with everything going on with PG, which is getting prepared for release here soon, I do believe I heard sometime October or November, possibly in Canada, something like that.
I think that's changing. Stay tuned on that. I can't really give you like an answer right now. It's coming out, but I think due to circumstances, we may be pushing a little bit.
Oh.
Just understand because I want this movie to be in theaters. It's kind of important. So yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I can't give you a hard answer on that. Just at the moment, there'll be a proper announcement soon, but it will be coming out soon-ish.
Oh well, we can't wait to see it. We're as soon as the movie comes out, we'll probably have an episode put out on that. We're looking forward. The trailer itself was just an absolute barrel of fun, just watching it and all the crazy characters that appear and stuff. So yeah,
it throws a lot at you in the trailer. I like how I think there was a few comments I saw on the YouTube video. People were like, "How did these images even add up to a coherent movie?" And you'd be surprised to know that they actually do. It's just a lot of shit in one movie. So yeah, excited for people to see it. It is totally bonkers. My favorite thing that I've made. And, yeah.
Excellent. So that leads into one other big question that I have. Can you tell us about anything that you might have on the go now, or can you tell us that you've got another project on the go, or can you give us any details of anything if you do?
I've got a thing on the go, but I actually don't I haven't gotten the full sign off on if I can publicly talk about it. But
Okay.
I'm getting on a plane to go work on it on Sunday. So
hence the quick to nature to let's get this discussion going. You're leaving.
Yeah. Well, it's like otherwise I'd have to do it from DC, and I feel like that would it would get way too complicated starting next week. So yeah, we jumped on this sooner rather than later. But yeah, unfortunately, I don't want to blow the reveal on that just yet. Though I had been dropping some hints on one of my Instagram pages, my Kill Kostanski account. I've been posting a lot of zombie stuff lately, so I don't know.
Oh, no way. Okay, I'm keeping my mouth shut because okay. All right. I have a good idea now.
Keep on my Kill Kostanski Insta if you want to see more about it. I'll try to tease it out as best as I can. But yeah, that's all I'm allowed to say.
All right. Well, that sounds good. Gentlemen, anything else that you have for Mr. Kostanski?
I was told that we were doing this interview today, and I was excited because I was a huge fan of The Void. Huge fan of The Void. That movie completely blindsided me. I was like, "Oh, this trailer is so cool," and then I watched the movie, and it was so cool. But I started going through your IMDb of your effects work, and you've worked on some fucking movies, man.
Yeah. It's been a long decade of working on lots of random shit.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it. You've done some stuff on the Suicide Squad. You did stuff on Clown, ABC's of Death. I'm like, man, this guy's been doing all kinds of stuff. Out of your big list of things, I mean, is there an effect or some movie you worked on that you were like, holy crap, I can't believe I'm on this set right now doing this?
I mean, this is such a dud of a movie to bring up, but I'm a crazy Silent Hill fan.
Yeah.
So when I got hired on that second movie, it was I know I said Resident Evil was a high point, but really, in terms of just a property that I cherish, just being able to have my name attached to a Silent Hill thing, such an achievement to me. like I got hired. I was hired as like an intern on that show. I wasn't even like a full effects artist, and eventually worked my way up to being more useful on the team. Just because I was so like committed to it and just busting my ass trying to make all this stuff. It was like a real crazy experience in terms of how many people were on that show. It was like every big effects artist in Toronto at the time was on it, and it was just such a hectic schedule. And yeah, working for Paul Jones out of his shop, uh, building all these weird monsters, like it just meant a lot to me that I got hired on that thing, and that I get to have like a credit that says I worked on the Silent Hill property.
Yeah, that's
Again,
awesome.
say what
yeah,
you
that's
will.
awesome.
So, just being attached to that brand is a huge achievement. So, yeah, that's definitely. Those other ones, I mean, I only helped out for a few days on Star Trek, but it was like kind of cool to be able to help Blue Klingons both for a few days. Wasn't even really a Star Trek fan at the time. I don't know. Again, it's like I'm happy to be involved in anything that's like a property, like a brand that's recognizable. Because it just, I don't know. It's like it just becomes an extra bit of justification.
Yeah.
For obsessively watching movies as a kid and like not going outside like a kid probably should have been doing. So it's like every property I get to be involved in, it's like one more thing I can take back in time with me to be like, hey Steve, like keep watching those Romero zombie movies because it's gonna be something someday.
With that being said, is there any property that you might have been a huge fan of as a kid that you haven't worked on yet that you would love to work on?
Good question.
There's so many. I would you could just name pretty much anything and I would be all over it. Like Leprechaun for me, even though it's like definitely not a franchise that I was like obsessed with as a kid. Like I watched it, like part of that like catalog of like video horror movies that I consumed. But like any kind of in that realm, I would gladly tackle. Like I would be all over like a Pumpkinhead.
Nice.
Yes.
Anything like that. Like I really someday, hopefully, when the dust settles from the Littlest Reich, I'll be able to maybe try doing a Puppet Master, or like Trancers. Just like there's so many properties that are just sitting there that I'm like, why are we not making like 10 sequels now? I guess I just really am nostalgic for that like late 90s, early 2000s era of like the straight to video Hellraiser movie where they just like crank them. Like where it was just like every year there was like a new Hellraiser and a new Prophecy movie.
Yeah.
Like that's the kind of world I want to be operating in where I can just jump from like one straight to video thing to the next. I know it's like seems like a low bar to set, but it's so much fun making Leprechaun, and I would just love to keep doing that kind of thing. Like trying to like breathe some life into stuff that's kind of stagnant and maybe become a little forgotten. Try to rejuvenate some of these properties because I feel like there's so many iconic horror franchises that deserve to come back, deserve to be revisited. I would be all over doing a Wishmaster movie.
Oh,
That's one that I feel like I've been pushing for that for a while.
We got to get Div off in the makeup, though.
Yeah, or at the very least, like get him to do voice or something. Like just got to get him back to some capacity.
Yeah.
But I think that would be a fun property to reintroduce. Like I don't feel like we have any like horror icons right now. Everybody's like nostalgically looking back on Freddy and Jason and it's things that like are never gonna come back in their current state just because of rights issues or people being old. So it's like there's things outside of that we could be trying to rejuvenate and revisit. I mean, I'm also a huge Phantasm fan, and I know Angus.
Yes.
I know Angus passed, and it's sad, but I feel like there is a way to continue that universe and still honor his memory as the Tall Man.
Yep.
Because to me, Tall Man is such a he's like bigger than just that character. I feel like he's an idea more than just a man.
Absolutely.
And I think that there's ways to reintroduce the Tall Man in a more Lovecraftian sense that doesn't necessarily have to be Angus Scrimm. So yeah, I feel like that would be a cool franchise to, bring back and maybe like introduce younger audiences to it, because it's just so spooky.
It definitely does need a refreshing, like a fresh coat of paint if it's going to go any further, because we're doing an entire series of on Phantasm right now, and the comments and the discussions that we're having are quite interesting. Let's just put it that way. So
yeah, because I was not a Phantasm fan growing up, so it's kind of like I lost that window of like magic and wonder as a kid watching them, right? And I'm watching them as a cynical 40-year-old man now, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? Like, that's my biggest gripe. I don't know what's going on, and I tried 4 movies, and I mean, the third one was really good. I liked it, but I don't know. I mean, and I always said that I can appreciate the series because, it's iconic.
The music.
Tons of people like it, all that kind of stuff. But, and the soundtrack is like one of my favorite themes ever in horror. But yeah, if someone could bring it back and just have it make a little bit more sense and a little linear for my stunned ass, so like I would be happy, because the idea behind it is so cool, right? It's so unlike anything else that's going on, and I don't know. I try every episode. I try.
I totally get that it gets very muddled, and I think some of the appeal comes from that, because it's almost like it works in like a Lynchian kind of way, where it's like it not making sense is what makes it scary and unsettling. But I do think like you could streamline it a bit and still keep like it's basically what we did with The Void, and the Phantasm was an inspiration for that. Was like not having all the answers is good, and helps build dread and mystery and suspense, but you still have to like ground it in characters, and like their actions and their journey should make sense.
Yep.
And having stuff in the background that's ambiguous is fine, and only enhances kind of like the plight of the characters. But if suddenly like their actions don't make sense, and then what the overarching story doesn't make sense, and you're just sitting there confused, then you kind of lose the effect a little bit. So yeah, I think there's a way to attack Phantasm that would make it work and make it accessible without losing the kind of weird mystery of it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, you definitely you wouldn't want to lose that that background that it's got, because that's what drew me to Phantasm was how strange and off the wall it was. And and that's why I brought it up to you guys for the podcast. Let's do this, because I knew we were going to have certain aspects from each one of us that may not jive, right? And that's what's happening. So
well, that's what makes a good show: conflict and difference of opinions and stuff,
and
right?
people getting frustrated and.
For me personally, I honestly think with Phantasm, the like inconsistencies that bug me the most are the ones that feel like they're just put in as like just as like jump scares and things that almost feel like studio mandated. Like a good example is the end of part 3. I forget the little kid's name, but like how they just keep repeating that ending of like it's just a dream, and then Tall Man shows up and he's like, no, it's not. And like he's somehow standing next to like a giant floor to ceiling like mirror that like some gremlins come through and grab him, and it's like then we don't see what happened. Like, okay, I guess Timmy's dead in the next one. Like I feel like that kind of stuff is what irritates me in Phantasm, because it feels more like kind of Hollywood script writing coming into play when they should have just committed to the mystery of it. Like I think the ending of 4 is the best ending in the whole franchise, which may be a controversial opinion, but I think that's an ambiguity that works because it ends. The emotional arc of that story is satisfying, of Reggie being like, "I'm coming back for you," and him going into the portal and like pushing in on Mike's eye and going into that flashback of them in the ice cream truck. It's just such a nice, like, poignant moment to end a horror movie on, as opposed to some stupid thing where it's like, yeah, tall man, camera, yeah, and getting grabbed, like, yeah. So there's my minor beef with the Phantasm movies. Not
We've officially heard from Steven Kostanski.
Yeah, there we go.
This is not the first Phantasm tangent I've gone on the past like few podcast interviews that I've done. I keep it up, and then I just keep going on these rants. So I should just cut it off right there and be like, "Look, we'll talk about something else. I don't have to talk about that."
Nice.
You can see I feel about that. It's very, very near and dear to my heart.
That's
awesome.
Great.
Mine too.
Yeah. I look back on it with rose-colored glasses, and I now, as Tim would probably say, I'm more of a jaded adult that's looking at it going, "What the hell was I thinking?" In some cases, but you can get some enjoyment out of it. So,
well, the thing that I always said was these movies were made with love. Like, this guy is like, this is his vision and his dream, and I think it's awesome that he's able to not alone like only make a featured film, but like multiple sequels of this vision that he has, and I totally respect that. It's just sometimes the way it comes across, it's like, what are you doing? Where am I at? Why is he alive? I thought he was dead, and you know what I mean? But yeah, it's definitely an enjoyable movie to watch, like kind of go through this rabbit hole of this guy's brain, you know what I mean? So
it's a bit of a like George Lucas syndrome, I think, where if you have one creator where it's just his vision, like unaltered, you're gonna run into those problems where it's like probably could have used maybe a bit of like, I don't know, like critique on the screenplay level from somebody else to be like, maybe let's smooth this out a bit.
Yep.
So it's like, it's a bit of a trade-off. Like, I do like that you get that clear vision from Coscarelli, but at the same time, it's like, could maybe have a little bit of like a little polish on it to make some of the logical.
Absolutely. Well, gentlemen, I think what we're going to do is we're going to actually cut the interview now and let Steven get back to preparing for this big project that he's hitting a plane for this weekend that we can't wait to hear very much more about. So we look forward to updates, and we're going to check out that Instagram account. So you keep teasing us, buddy. Keep teasing us. So we just want to take a moment to thank you very much, Steven, for joining us on this call today and chatting about horror and the invites out there. When you start rolling on post-production on whatever you're hitting now and you get a little bit of time, maybe we'll hit you up and you can chat with us again. We'd love to hear some updates from you, and we'll go from there. So thank you very much, Steven, for your time today, and everybody, thank you very much for tuning in. These shows are available on our Facebook channel for Misunderstood Art Company, as well as on YouTube, Misunderstood Art Company. Like, share, and subscribe. We also produce audio copies of this every week on our major podcasting platforms, including, but not limited to, Google Play, iTunes, and Spotify. We're also on Patreon. Open up your hearts and your wallets. Buy Tim a coffee, because that's what Tim needs to keep going in the span of a day. Please. And until next time, Aaron.
Keep your balls in the air.
Okay.
Tim!
Stay spooky, everybody.
Say goodbye to the folks, Steve.
Goodbye.
See you next time.
See you, Steve.